Oh, hi guys, it's good to see you all. And guess what? Just a few days ago, I read something about a guy called Michelangelo. He was an Italian sculptor, painter, architect, poet, and engineer of the High Renaissance who exerted an unparalleled influence on the development of Western art. He was born on March 6, 1475 and died February 18, 1564. He is also considered a contender of the title Renaissance Man along with his fellow Italian, Leonardo da Vinci. And guess what? Michelangelo was considered the greatest living artist in his lifetime, and since then, he has been held as one of the greatest artists of all time. A number of his work in painting, sculpture, and architecture rank among the most famous in existence. During his lifetime, his output in every field was prodigious, and some can say that when all of his work is survived until now, and taken into account, he's the best documented artist of the 16th century. Two of his best-known works, the Pietà and David, were sculpted before he turned 30. Despite his low opinion painting, Michelangelo also created two of the most influential works in fresco in the history of Western art. And those two paintings are the scenes from Genesis on the ceiling and the Last Judgment on the altar wall of the Sistine Chapel in Rome. As an architect, Michelangelo pioneered the Mannerist style at the Renaissance lifetime. As said before, he succeeded Antonio da Sangiolo the Younger as the architect of St. Peter's Basilica. Michelangelo hands from the plan. The rest of the plan being finished, Michelangelo's design, the dome, being completed after his death with some modification. And this is the best part. In a demonstration of Michelangelo's understanding, he was the first Western artist whose biography was published while he was alive. Two biographies were published of him during his lifetime. One of them, by Giorgio Vasari, proposed that he was the pinnacle of all artistic achievement since the beginning of the Renaissance, a viewpoint that continued to have currency in art history for centuries. In his lifetime, he was also often called Il Divino, which means the Divine One. One of the qualities most admired by his contemporaries was his terribilità, a sense of awe-inspiring grandeur, and it was the attempts of subsequent artists to imitate Michelangelo's impatient and highly personal style that resulted in Mannerism, the next major movement in Western art after the High Renaissance.
Painter, sculptor, architect, and poet Michelangelo Buonarroti is one of the most famous artists of Italian Renaissance. He was born on 6th of March 1475 in Carpes, Italy. His father briefly was serving as a magistrate of the small village, but they returned to Florence when Michelangelo was still an infant. Due to his mother's illness, Michelangelo was placed with a family of stonecutters. Michelangelo was less interested in schooling than watching painters nearby churches and drawing what he saw there. One of his school friends, Francesco Granacci, introduced him to painter Domenico Ghirlandaio. After that, Michelangelo's father realized that his son has no interest in the financial business of the family, so agreed to apprentice him at the age of 13 to the fashionable Florentine painter's workshop. There, Michelangelo was exposed to Technica fresco. Michelangelo had spent only 1 year at the workshop when an extraordinary opportunity opened to him. At the recommendation of Ghirlandaio, Michelangelo moved to palace of Florentine ruler Lorenzo the Magnificent of powerful Medici family to study classical sculpture in Medici Gardens. Besides that, Michelangelo exposed to poets, scholars, and learned about humanities, and he also studied and researched on dead bodies to learn more about insight of anatomy. All these combined influences laid the groundwork for what would become Michelangelo's distinctive style. Michelangelo had spent 3 years with the Medici family between 1489 to 1492. And after that, because of a political strife, Michelangelo fled to Bologna to continue his study. He returned to Florence again in 1495. And after that, Michelangelo's Cupid sculpture, which artificially aged to a resemble rare antique, was bought by Cardinal Riaro, and he really impressed about Michelangelo's sculptures, so invited him to Rome, where Michelangelo would live and work there for the rest of his life. Not long after Michelangelo's relocation to Rome in 1498, his career was blustered, and he started to become famous all around Italy, and after that all around the world.
My name is Mahi, and I'm going to tell you a bit about the statue of David. It was created by Michelangelo in 1501, and it was finished in 1504.
Today it is renowned as a masterpiece of Renaissance sculpture. It was originally commissioned as one of a series of statues of prophets to be positioned along the roofline of the east end of Florence Cathedral.
According to the Hebrew Bible, David was the second king of the United Kingdom of Israel, and according to the New Testament of Gospel of Matthew and Luke, he's also known as the ancestor of Jesus.
Because of the nature of the hero that it represented, it soon came to symbolize the defense of civil liberties embodied in the Florentine Republic. The eyes of David, with a warming glare, were turned towards Rome. The statue was moved to the Accademia Gallery in Florence in 1873, and it was later replaced at the original location by a replica of it. In 1991, the foot of the 17-feet structure was damaged by a deranged man with a hammer. The samples obtained from this incident allowed scientists to realize the type of marble that was used to create it. They found out that it was created with a type of marble that deteriorated faster than other kinds of marbles.
This statue of David is definitely one of the best works of art and best work of sculpture that we can see in the world today.
Did you know that Michelangelo also painted the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel? It is one of the most amazing works of art that we can see in the world. Every morning, when the gates are open, thousands of visitors flood in front of the gates of the Sistine Chapel. When the building was first constructed, its walls were filled with monumental murals, and the ceiling only had a glimpse of stars. 26 years later, Pope Julius II decided that it needed a new paint job. When he assigned Michelangelo for the task, he was taking a leap of faith. How could such a brilliant yet inexperienced man finish the entire painting in such a short time? When painting started, Michelangelo did not attempt to draw the figures by freehand.
Each figure started as a sketch or a cartoon. It was then followed by procedure that modern-day artists like to call pouncing. Pouncing is a mean of transferring the cartoon into the plaster. Well, time was running and Michelangelo was in a lot of pressure because of the aging Pope. So, he proposed to change the method of pouncing into a faster mean. So how did Michelangelo create this masterpiece in just 4 years? Well, the answer is simple. He was a genius.
Hi, I'm going to be talking about Michelangelo's life in Rome, his latest works in Rome, and also his latest sketches. Michelangelo's life in Rome was nothing short of hectic. He arrived in the year 1496 when he was only 21 years old to carve several projects, like the Pieta, which he was heralded for as Italy's foremost sculptor. He returned to Florence to complete several projects, but traveled back to Rome in the year 1501. Due to the fact that Michelangelo had a turbulent relationship with the Pope Julius II, he traveled back and forth from Rome to Florence. He eventually returned to Rome to build the statue of Pope Julius II in bronze. He then worked on the painting of the Sistine Chapel's ceiling, which he finished in the year 1512. After the death of Pope Julius II, he was commissioned by many successive popes who only wanted him for their own glory. Returning to Rome after fleeing to Venice during the attack of the Republicans, he was commissioned by Pope Clement VII to work on the altar wall of the Sistine Chapel. Pope Clement VII died before painting could begin, but his successor, Pope Paul III, continued overseeing the project. The project, which is also known as the Last Judgment, is a terrifying vision expressing Michelangelo's own mental suffering. He worked on this project from 1536 to 1541. Michelangelo was then commissioned to work on St. Peter's by Pope Paul III. He worked on this project until his death on the 18th of February 1564. As we all know, Michelangelo has many famous works in Rome. One of his latest works is Santa Maria degli Angeli. This project was commissioned by Pope Pius IV, and it involved the transformation of the Roman baths into a Christian church. He finished this project in the year 1564, just before he died. Another of his latest works is The Last Judgment. He was commissioned by Pope Clement VII. This project was massive and spanned the entire wall behind the altar of the Sistine Chapel. Michelangelo worked on the project for 5 years, from 1536 to 1541. The painting is the depiction of the second coming of Christ and the apocalypse. Last but not least, I'll be talking about Michelangelo's latest sketches. The last sketch of the artist that was found is of the dome of St. Peter's Basilica. It was discovered in the Vatican Archives on the 7th of December 2007. It is rare to find sketches of Michelangelo, as he destroyed most of his designs later in his life. The sketch is of the radial columns of the cupola drum of St. Peter's. It was drawn in 1563.
Throughout Michelangelo's life, he has produced quite a number of exceptional works, ranging from architectural works, painting works, and also sculptural works. One of his greatest works of all time is the St. Peter's Basilica. Now, the St. Peter's Basilica is located in the Vatican City. The Vatican City is actually a very small country, which is called the Vatican. The St. Peter's Basilica is actually a Latte Renaissance church style. It is named after the late St. Peter, one of the 12 apostles of Jesus Christ. St. Peter's is the most renowned Renaissance architectural works, and it remains one of the biggest and the largest churches in the world.
Neither the Mother Church of the Roman Catholic Church nor the Cathedral of the Bishop of Rome, St. Peter's is still regarded as one of the holiest Catholic sites. St. Peter's was principally designed by an architect named Donato Bramante, but he died on the year 1514. Now Michelangelo actually came in during the 1st of January 1547 during the reign of Pope Paul III. He actually did not take the job with pleasure because he was forced upon by the Pope Paul. Michelangelo wrote, "I undertake this only for the love of God and in honor of the Apostle." Michelangelo took over a building site at which 4 piers, enormous beyond constructed since ancient Roman times, were rising behind the remaining nave of the old basilica. He also inherited the numerous schemes designed and redesigned by some of the greatest architectural and engineering minds of the 16th century. Even though the work progressed only a little in 40 years, Michelangelo did not dismiss the ideas of the previous architects. He drew on them in developing a grand vision. Above all, Michelangelo recognized the essential quality of Bramante's original plan. He reverted to the Greek cross, and, as Helen Gardner expresses it, without destroying the centralizing features of Bramante's plan, Michelangelo, with a few strokes of the pen, converted his snowflake's complexity into massive, cohesive unity. As it stands today, St. Peter's has been extended with the nave by Carlo Maderna. It is the central end, with its huge centrally placed dome, that is the work of Michelangelo. Because of its location within the Vatican State, and because the projection of the nave screens the dome from sight when the building is approached from the square in front of it, the work of Michelangelo is best appreciated from a distance. What becomes apparent is that the architect has greatly reduced the clearly defined geometric forms of Bramante's plan of a square with square projections, and also of Raphael's plan of a square with semicircular projections. Michelangelo's St. Peter's Basilica is one of the most renowned iconic landmarks on Earth that exists for centuries, and he has been described as holding a unique position in the Christian world and as one of the greatest churches in the Christendom world.
To the more entertaining yet controversial topic, which is Michelangelo's sexuality. Michelangelo was said to have been married to his poems. This is due to the fact that his poems would portray his sexuality and his feelings towards other people. His poetic peak was between the years of 1532 to 1548. Michelangelo was around his 50s and 60s at this time. When Michelangelo moved to Rome and came across a man named Tommaso de Cavalieri, he was truly inspired by him, and you could say he fell in love with him. So Michelangelo would make his sketches, and he would write several poems dedicated to Tommaso. One of the poems that proves his sexuality is this. Only the fine of passion shuns compliance. Through it may leave green sapwood, sere and dry. In an old man's heart it stays aglow, alluring him back to young love's wild defiance. It renews, ignites, and raptures, kindles high, both heart and soul with the breath of love. So in this poem it's evident that the gender of the person he's talking about is in fact a male. It could have been a woman that Michelangelo met later named Vittoria Colonna, except he met her while she was in her 40s. Tommaso de Cavalieri was a heterosexual, but he was not interested in Michelangelo due to the fact that Michelangelo was a 57-year-old man and Tommaso was in his 20s. So eventually Tommaso got married, had children, but distanced himself slowly to Michelangelo while maintaining friendship. During this time, And after this time, Michelangelo met a woman called Vittoria Colonna. Now they became very close friends, and she inspired him to write more love poems than Cavalieri did in any way. She also encouraged him in his artwork, but in 1547 she had passed away, and due to that, Michelangelo stopped writing love poems. It was just the end of it for him. Not long after that, Michelangelo's informal agent passed away. Michelangelo wrote a few poems dedicated to him. After that, he started to write poems about his love for God and Jesus and salvation. And this was due to the fact that he was a homosexual, as you would say, depending on which side you would believe. Nonetheless, he would write most of his poems to Jesus for salvation and about death, and not long after he passed away. Despite the fact that people may say that Michelangelo was arrogant about his artwork, he was always modest about his poetry. As a group, we do absolutely respect him, we love his work, and he's the most influential person we know. The chapels, the poems, you name it, his work is amazing, and it was a pleasure researching about it.